Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Searching for Off-Campus Housing session. We are going to get started. So thank you for tuning in today. As was mentioned, we'll also be recording this session and it will be posted to the YouTube channel and will get shared out with folks. So if you are missing anything or you want to go back to some slides, everything will get posted as soon as possible. So my name is June. June Baldwin. I use she and her pronouns, and I am the coordinator of neighborhood relations and off-campus living here at the University of Guelph. And I have my amazing student staff with me, Juliet, who I'm going to hand things over to now.
Hi everyone, I'm Juliet. I also use she and her pronouns, and I'm the program assistant for off-campus living. So today, what we're going to be discussing is the process of searching for off-campus housing in Guelph, as I'm sure many of you are looking for. So an overview of what we'll be discussing today. So first, what is off-campus living? Where do students live? The process of finding roommates, average prices, where to look for listings, showings, living standards when looking at places, application process, what to look for, red flags, and getting to campus, and then finally building a community. So off-campus living is a unit within the student experience department at U of G, and we are here to support all students, whether they're living off-campus, looking for off-campus in the future or currently. And so we provide presentations and workshops such as this one, and we also offer one-on-one advising appointments for all things rental living. So for example, if in the future you have issues with your landlord, you're free to reach out to us and we'll be help with that. We also offer lease, sublease, and application reviews. And we also provide programming and events for off-campus students, and you're free to contact us at any time at ocl@uogolf.ca. So first, where do students live? So there's not a single concentrated student area. Students are spread out all throughout Guelph. Many of the surrounding neighborhoods around U of G that are close to grocery stores, the mall, entertainment, and so on. Majority of Guelph housing is individual homes, so lots of homes that may have more than one unit in them, such as townhouses, and these are owned by landlords. And there are some apartments as well, of course, that students may live in, but you might find that most of the houses the units you are looking for will be rooms inside of houses. There's some purpose-built student housing, such as Solstice Buildings, Edinburgh Village, which is also known as Chancellor's Way, Alma, and purpose-built student housing units do have wait lists. So if you're interested in this type of housing, you should inquire as soon as possible to get your name on the list. Probably not for this year, such as with Edinburgh Village, but definitely for next year in the May. So most students do take the bus to campus, which we will discuss more later. So finding roommates before you're searching. So there's a few different ways that you can look for roommates. One way is the I Am a Griffin app. Um, which is listed here. This is what you would see in the App Store. Another one is the Roommate Finder tool on Places for Students and groups based on year of study or program. So you can look when you're going through the roommate profiles, this is something you look at. So this is the Places for Students walkthrough. Is that working? All right, I think so. So this is what you'd see on the Places for Students. Make sure that you're writing in University of Guelph. Places for Student applies to a bunch of different universities. So you want to make sure that you are looking at University of Guelph. These are the search results. It's just being a little slow. Okay, so then you're going to scroll down. As you can see, there's property listings. But for roommates, you'd go down to roommate profiles. There's also student sublets in this Places for Students app. And then you're just going to click through the disclaimer. And this is what you'd see. So these are just the different roommate profiles, what people are looking for, different descriptions and that kind of thing. And yeah, so if you're interested in looking with a roommate for different places, this is kind of what you'd look for. Okay. And I think we can do the questions at the end if that works. But yeah, we'll get to them.
I think possibly the video might not have played, Juliet. Let's try
Oh,
again.
I love that.
Um, let's see if you press play.
You go.
I think now it's working.
Oh, okay. Okay, we're gonna do it all
We'll
over
just
again.
play it
So,
again.
so making sure that says University of Guelph, clicking through.
Yes, and for questions, we don't have the chat open today, but we are happy to take any questions through our email. And I will also mention that we will be running a drop-in Q&A session next week and also the week after. So those events will go up shortly before the end of this week, and that will be an opportunity where folks can come in. We'll answer questions live. We just don't have the capacity to do that today, but we are always open to questions in our email, and you can also book appointments with us as well.
Okay. So I hope everyone saw that video. So same description applies, but now you saw the video. Okay, so selecting a roommate. So when you are looking for a roommate, there's certain questions you should be asking yourself and with your roommate about whether you're getting along. And you don't have to be super strict with the questions you're going through, but it's some things you do want to consider. So things like commonalities, what do you have in common? What type of roommate relationship are you looking for? And do you enjoy the same things? And then also looking in the future, dealing with conflicts. So, what are our boundaries? Can I be open and honest with them? Will they be offended if I mention something? And how will we resolve these conflicts? And then we have lifestyle. So, do we have similar schedules and lifestyles? Do we both party? Does one party versus the other one? Also, substances and that kind of thing. These are things you do want to kind of talk about at the beginning, just so there's not any conflicts in the beginning, in the future. And then also safety. Do I feel safe? Do I have any allergies that could concern the other party? Do they have pets? Do I have pets? And health concerns. Okay, so this are the current rental prices. I think these are for last year, I believe, but they were collected from 146 listing ads from the Canon Places for Students and Rental Panda. And these are just what we were seeing. It does fluctuate year by year depending on demand and that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. It might not stick to this strictly, but these are the trends that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and I'll just add in that these numbers are from spring 2024, so they're not super out of date, but we know these prices have been going up. So if things are not reflected here, we'll get updated prices soon, but this is kind of what we saw for the bulk of the listings in the spring.
Yeah. And then also note that except for the one bedroom, all prices are per bedroom. And you might see 4 and 5 bedroom ads, which are the most common. You also want to consider additional expenses that are not included in the rental prices. So utilities may or may not be included, so budget accordingly. Most people go through Gulf Hydro for water and electricity and Union Gas for heating. Again, this is something you want to talk to your landlord about, whether you'd be paying it or whether it be included in the rent. The average additional is like $40 to $70 per month per person in a shared house. Also, what may or may not be included is internet, parking. So again, something you want to discuss with the landlord. Pricing may vary depending on the company, bandwidth, type of building, and so on. So we don't have standard prices for these kind of things. And then here are some listing services. So it's important to note that the university does not manage or administer any of these listing sites, but they do recommend them. So here are the student-focused listing sites you can use. Just to note that the Facebook group is specifically for students to join, not parents or guardians. Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace are other good sites you can definitely use. They are just not directly geared towards student listings. And make sure that when you're going on these sites that you are using caution to prevent being scammed and left without housing as a result. And if you're ever unsure about the quality of a listing, you are free to reach out to us at OCL at uoguelph.ca. So feel free to email us if you're ever unsure, just to make sure that you're being safe. So the canon, so hopefully this works. I think so.
I think click again.
Oh,
there we go.
Is it working? Oh, okay. Oops. How about now?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Okay, so this is the canon site. This is what you'd see. So when you go into the canon, yeah, so it would just ask you a bunch of questions related to the filters, what you're looking for, making sure that you're putting offering instead of wanted, because offering is it's the listings that are offered to you. So these are the sort of the listings that you would see. Some places may have pictures, some may not. If they don't just write it off. You can always email the landlord and ask them to see pictures. Make sure that you're reading the descriptions carefully, making sure that it applies to you, and then just contact them to set up a viewing. And we're going to talk about the showing just next. So yeah, after you contact the landlords, what you want to do is to arrange viewings. So using the listing websites and contacting the landlords for all the places that you're interested in. Don't rely on photos alone to determine your interest. They may be outdated or there may be none at all. So reaching out to landlords, you can give a brief description about yourself, including your name and your program, and ask to set up a viewing. Also making sure that you're reading the description of the unit. It likely lists a lot of information about other tenants, utilities, parking, rules about pets, and so on. Do not limit yourself to reaching out to just one landlord or listing at a time. They are receiving a lot of interest and you may not hear back from them because they are going very quickly. They also might not take them down right away if they have been taken. So don't just rely on one listing, contact a bunch of them. Ask for an application in advance of viewing if it is a unit in a high demand place, and then have a filled out application might increase your chances. But keep in mind, not all places units might have an application, and they also might be online. So having it filled out online, also ready to email them, is also a good idea. And then step 2 is to attend the showings, which primarily will happen in person. But if you require a virtual showing, you can request this of the landlord. Showings are a great time to see the place and get a proper feel for the unit, as well as get to know the landlord and see if they're the right fit for you. That's extremely important. If you do not get along with the landlord, that will probably cause issues in the future. So making sure that you are getting along with the landlord. So for the in-person showings, treat these showings like a job interview by being professional, because this is your chance to show that you are the right fit for the unit. When they have a bunch of applicants, usually they have to be very nitpicky about who they are accepting. Sometimes it's just about being the first person to contact them. So also ask questions. This is your best opportunity to ask questions, any questions that you have about the unit. So making sure that you're being detailed about that. So asking questions about parking, internet, utilities, and furniture. And again, if you're able to fill out the application, either a physical copy or online, and be ready to submit it if you do like the place. Okay.
All right, so now we're going to chat about living standards. So these are some things to look for when you're going to a viewing, or things that you might want to check in on with landlords. So making sure that you have working smoke alarms on every level and outside of all of the sleeping areas. And note that houses built after 2013 must also have one on every single level. Do you have working carbon monoxide alarms installed? Do you have 2 safe ways to get out of the unit in case of a fire? If you or your housemates are sleeping in the basement, is there a large enough window or door that's on the floor that you're sleeping on that leads directly outside so that you can get out in case of a fire? If your building has more than 4 bedrooms and they're all sharing one kitchen, is it certified with the city? That's something that's required in Guelph. And if your building has 2 separate kitchens, is it registered with the city? So there's some supports that are able to help with these kinds of things. So before you move in, you can call the city to see if the property is registered or certified, if it falls into those categories we mentioned before. And the city can also tell you about building permits or any outstanding complaints, just so that you can ensure that you're safe when you move in. After you move in, there are also supports available through the city of Guelph. City inspectors could come and see if your rental unit meets all of the minimum safety standards. You can contact them to book a free inspection of your rental unit as well. Okay, and step 3 is to complete an application. So there's no standard application that landlords are using. This is an example of one that we commonly see, but landlords will use a variety of applications and templates. They may ask for different things. Some landlords may not have a formal application. They just want to speak with somebody. And basically, what landlords are doing is seeking information to decide whether or not you will be a good tenant, that won't do damage to the property and will pay your rent on time. Those are kind of the priorities for landlords. So we suggest being really prepared. So landlords might ask for guarantors and or references for rentals. Try to have this information ready if possible. Obviously, if you don't have if you are looking for references and you may not have like work experience, or you certainly might not have other rental experience, you can use coaches, teachers, things like that as well. If you don't have a guarantor, keep in mind that the university is not able to provide one. So your best option would be to talk to the landlord and come up with an alternative. They may ask for bank statements or something like that, to prove that you can pay the rent. You can submit proof of enrollment. You can suggest or you can request proof of enrollment from the institution if landlords are looking for that. That's not something that's required to secure a rental, but it might possibly help your application. Um, and you can request that from the registrar's office. Landlords may also ask for a credit check. It's important to note that you don't need to provide your SIN, your social insurance number. They can do a credit check without this information. And also, typically, if landlords are renting to students, they understand that there may not be a credit history there, and they may be looking for this information from a parent or guarantor. Our best advice for securing a rental is just to try to be as quick as possible with the whole process. Landlords obviously have a lot of interest, especially right now, and there's a lot of competition for units. Sometimes it's kind of a matter of just being the first one to respond and the first one to complete the application. That being said, though, you definitely want to make sure that the unit is safe and is a good fit for you before you actually sign that lease. So the next step in the process is signing a lease and paying last month's rent. So if and when your application is approved, you should be provided a copy of the standard lease from the landlord, which we will look at the next slide. This will mostly be filled out by the landlord with all of the specifics of your unit. So what's included, what's not, the agreed monthly rate, the length of the term. Typically, it's a 1-year lease, although this doesn't mean that you need to move out after that term is up. It would automatically switch to a month-to-month lease. And we're here to support with those questions as well. If you've been in your unit for a year, your landlord may be asking you to re-sign a lease. We recommend having an appointment with us, and we can kind of chat through whether or not that's something you need to do, or if your tenancy will just continue on. The lease is a legally binding contract, and that's your contract for the unit, and you're responsible for those agreed upon terms. Once the lease has been signed, you'll likely be required to pay a last month's rent deposit. Landlords should only be asking for last month's rent payment. However, many will also request first month's rent at the time of signing the lease. And also noting that landlords should not be asking for a damage deposit. The only thing that they're allowed to ask for in addition to last month's rent is a key deposit, which would be the expected amount to replace the keys if they were lost. So keep in mind that keys typically aren't overly expensive, so there shouldn't be any kind of like $500 key deposit. That might not be legitimate. And again, you can always check in with us if you kind of are having a feeling that something maybe isn't right, or if they're not asking for something that they're allowed to ask for. So for example, if you're looking to move into the unit on September 1st and you sign a lease on July 10th, you'd be expected to pay last month's rent on July 10th on that date that you're signing the lease. And then you would start paying your monthly rent payments as of September 1st. And that last month's rent payment would be used for your final month of rent when you live in the unit. So the very last month you're living in that unit, the last month's rent would go towards. Okay, so this is what the standard lease looks like. It's not just one page, it's many pages. It was created by the Ontario government in 2018, and it protects tenants by helping them know what their rights are. And it protects tenants' rights and it protects landlords by ensuring that their contract is legal under the Residential Tenancies Act. So the Residential Tenancies Act, or RTA, outlines the right of landlords and tenants, and you can find that online as well for free. If your landlord doesn't provide you with the standard lease that looks exactly like this, you can request a copy of it. Sometimes landlords will make their own lease or they're using an outdated version, but keep in mind that if they put additional clauses that go against the Residential Tenancies Act, you are still protected by this standard lease and by the RTA. Landlords may also use one lease for a group of tenants, or they might use individual leases for each tenant. And there's pros and cons kind of to both of those, but both are acceptable. So this lease applies specifically to tenants that are not living in the same home as their landlord or with their landlord's immediate family member. So if you do live with your landlord or their family member, you're not actually protected by the Residential Tenancies Act. And I'd encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions about what that means in terms of your rights as a tenant. And the other thing is that we're very happy to review leases. We can review subleases as well. You can always just send us an email with the lease. That's probably the best way for us to get back to you, and we can send any notes or concerns that we have. Okay, so some red flags to look out for in your searching for housing process. So if you're unable to meet the landlord or the property manager in person, if the landlord is out of the town or country and there's no local contact, there should always be somebody who's available locally, because if you have an emergency, you need to make sure that somebody's there to take care of your unit. If you're not able to see the unit in real time, for example, if it's a pre-recorded kind of video, that could be a red flag as well. Asking for any deposits other than last month's rent, asking for any kind of payments prior to signing a lease would also be a red flag, and prices and lease terms that are too good to be true. So if you are reaching out to a landlord and they say, what are you looking for? And you give them a price and you give them, a specific term that's not 1 year, then most likely that could be a scam. And we'd recommend checking in with us certainly before giving any money to that landlord and moving forward. Okay, so some frequently asked questions. We've kind of gone over some of these, but just to kind of clarify things. So when do you pay last month's rent? And that is when you're signing your lease. So you want to make sure you actually have that agreement before you're paying any rent, just to protect yourself. That's the process that should be in place. When will the lease start? The lease would start for whatever the agreed upon term is. Most folks who are looking right now are probably looking at a lease that starts potentially August 1st or September 1st, but you just want to make sure that it will say that. The typical student cycle, that being said, is usually May 1st. So that's a really common turnaround time for student leases as well. Our best advice really is just to be prompt but thorough in the entire searching for housing process. So while you need to be ready to sign a lease quite quickly, just due to the amount of competition, you want to make sure that that's something that's safe and is a suitable option for you and is going to actually meet all of your needs. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. You'll see our email again on the last slide. Okay, so accessing campus. So the university has a contract with City Transit in Guelph, which means that your student card doubles as a bus pass. So you just tap on every time that you want to take the bus and you can go anywhere. It's not exclusive to specific campus routes, and it is covered by your student fees. Most bus lines will come through campus. There's our big bus loop here that most of the routes will come through. And the majority of students who live off campus do use the bus. You can tap and go on all of the routes in the city of Guelph. You can also use their on-demand services, which is a nice service. You can book a ride in advance from any bus stop in Guelph to another bus stop in Guelph. And you can book with a group of, I believe, up to 5 people as well. We recommend trying to find housing that's within one bus to campus so that you don't have to transfer somewhere else. As mentioned, typically most of the bus routes will come to campus, but if you have any questions, we can help with route planning. And then we can also, you can use Google Maps if you want to check the routes as well. There are other transportation options to getting to campus. Obviously, walking or biking are common. You can put your bike on the buses as well if you wanted to do a combination. Driving is also common. There are parking permits that are available to students. And of course, we have a lot of commuting students as well. There is Go buses and Go train services to Guelph, and students receive a 40% discount on Go Transit. Okay, so building community and staying connected at U of G. So living off campus doesn't mean that you should be any less connected to the campus and to everything that's going on at the university. Here's some ways that you can kind of stay connected and build community here. So our office, the off-campus living team, runs weekly events in the fall and winter semester. So that's open to all off-campus students, usually socially focused events. We do games nights, craft nights, things like that. And we're also always open to new ideas and suggestions. We have Griff Life, which if you're not familiar with, we'll go over in the next slide. Then there's the off-campus university students group, and that is a student-run club. They have a lounge in our university center that's open to students, so you can hang out in there between classes. They also run a lot of really cool events, both on campus and off campus. And they'll be doing lots of cool stuff with our team during orientation week. So there'll be lots of events and stuff going on for off-campus students then too. The I Am a Griffin app also kind of outlines different clubs on campus and different student groups as well. And that's a really great resource for you. Okay, so we'll make sure this is working. Julia, hopefully you can see it, but this is what Griff Life looks like. So you can search through events. You can join the off-campus living group as well on Griff Life, and then you'll kind of be notified when events are going on. But Griff Life overall will show you kind of every event that's happening on campus. So not just specific to off-campus events, but there's lots of events that are open to all students or all first-year students, and you can kind of check those out here. These are some of the past events that we have done for off-campus students. Okay, and that is everything for our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining. This is our email. Please feel free to write it down, send us any questions or follow-ups that you have from the session today. Like I said, we'll be doing a drop-in Q&A session next week. We're just firming up the dates and times, and once that goes out, it will be sent out to folks, and it will also be posted on Griff Life, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, please reach out with any questions you have. Have a little bit of patience. We are receiving a high volume of things, but we're trying to respond as soon as we can. Thank you so much, folks. Take care.
Also, it looks kind of wonky for me, so it's ocl@uoguelph.ca.
Okay, font problems. We love it. ocl@uoguelph.ca. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.